Hey guys, TommyBryson here, and welcome back to the channel. And the first thing is, can any teenager really build any great amount of money, any great amount of wealth? And the answer is yes. Like after I did the math while making this video, I kind of figured out that basically you could have up to around $60,000 in your savings accounts by the time you turn 18 if you do things correctly. And if you ask me, that's a good amount of money. And even myself as a teenager, I touched at least $10,000 to $20,000. And I gotta be honest, I don't know where any of that money actually is today, because back then I would start a business for a goal to buy sneakers, to buy clothes, to buy video games, to buy a game console. And then once I was done getting what I wanted, I would basically just stop everything and halt everything because I really didn't care. I just wanted what I wanted and that was it. But by you watching this video, I know basically you are a lot smarter than I was as a teenager. So in this video, I'm gonna tell you exactly, step by step, how to build wealth as a teenager. So this way, you can be a lot better off than the average person out there. And having $60,000 in a savings account by the time you turn 18, ask any adult out there, they barely have $1,000 to cover any expenses. If you don't believe me, go ahead and Google that, okay? So as always, smash the like button on top of that. Also, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified. And without further ado, let's get right into this video. Now, the very first thing, guys, is as a teenager, the very first thing you're going to need is going to be money. And to get money in order to build wealth, you're going to need to have a source of income, a source of where you actually get this money. And that means you're going to need to find a job or get a little business, because this first money is going to be your first investment to actually build the life that you actually want to build. And to me, that's awesome. But then again, I am a nerd when it comes to money. And the first thing you might think is basically, Tommy, because I am a teenager, I am limited in the jobs I can do. And the answer is yes, but you are not super limited. There are a bunch of different options as far as, for example, all the jobs you can basically work. And you can work, for example, 4 hours a day during a school day and also extra hours during non-school days. So you're basically able to work like 30 to 40 hours potentially during a whole school week type thing. So that's not that bad. And in certain restaurants, for example, when you actually work there, they'll let you work more hours, although you're not supposed to. But you can, if you wanted to. You can work in this place and in that place, so you never really know. But the answer is, it all depends where you're working and how they're actually paying you. I won't go into detail about that, but you can kind of use your imagination to guess where I'm going. Now, not just that, guys, okay? But as a teenager, you don't really need to make a ton of money, because usually if you're the average teenager, you also don't have a crazy amount of expenses. You live with your parents, all right? It's a true thing. So in reality, my main focus would just be on, hey, I want to make some money, which is awesome. So focus on that. How much money am I going to make? A good amount of money, between $8 to $15 an hour to $20 an hour. That's awesome, okay? But then on top of that, if you can say, well, as long as I don't spend all this money, you're going to be just fine. Because again, you don't have that many expenses. So that is the big advantage. And just make sure that whatever you're actually doing, try different things out. See what you like and what you don't like. So that way, when you are 18, it's time to decide, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. You kind of know exactly, have an idea of what you actually want to get into. But don't just focus on, I'm going to do this is pay me money. Focus on, I'm going to try different things out because they pay me money, but I also want to know exactly what I like and what I don't like. That is a lot more important, to experiment with things. That's super, super important as far as jobs, okay? Now, number two, guys, is the most important part of this video, and is whatever money you actually make, you want to create a budget for it, or what I call, for example, just a simple plan on how you're actually going to use this money. Again, whenever I made money, it was for a goal. So I always accomplished it, but then after that, it was basically done and over with. And that's why I don't have any of that teenage money I ever made, but you're going to be a lot more different, okay? Now, my recommendation would be this, okay? What you want to do with the money that comes in is you want to split it into two categories. And the first one is my wants. Second one is going to be my needs. Now, wants are super, super important. I already know you're not the average person watching this video right now, but I want you to still have some wants, because one big thing I notice is basically whenever I would try to save a ton of money and just save, and not spend anything on anything, the answer was I would usually at some point get frustrated and end up spending all of the money all at once on something very stupid. But if I managed to keep it balanced and spend money every now and then on things I wanted, I never had that crazy urge that would arise for me to spend just a ton of money. So here is my recommendation. It's just my advice. You do whatever works for you. You can experiment and try different things out, but this is what I would basically do. Spend 10, no less than 10% of your money on your wants, and no more than 20% of your money on your wants. So between 10 to 20%. That is the rule. So whatever you want to use that money for, whether it's I want to buy some games, I want to buy some clothes, I want to go on this vacation, I want to save my money for this or that or whatever, the answer is you use that money for that, okay? But there's one rule. You got to spend part of that money every single month. If you want to save for something in the future, like, hey, Tommy, well, this costs $400, $500, it's going to cost me a lot more. It is a want. I want to save them for it. That's fine. But still save and spend a part of it. Because if you don't spend a part of it, you're going to start having this crazy itch to spend a ton of money all at once, and that's not what you want to do. So that's the rule. You got to set aside between 10 to 20% of that money for your wants, but then also spend part of it every month and then save part of it if you want to for something that you want that's more expensive later on. That's the idea. Now, the other 90 to 80% is going to be put towards the things that you actually need to actually get done. Now, recommendation here, you don't have to do this because some parents won't accept it, but take at least 5 to 10% of your money and give it to your parents because you're saying basically, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. And it's kind of like teaching you, hey, nothing in this world is kind of like free in a sense. So you kind of pay, you're like, hey, I'm helping out with the burden, with the house, with the expenses, with the money that I actually have. Most of them would say like, hey, that's fine, don't worry about it, whatever. But doing it is more for you than it is for them initially when you start getting it done. It's very important, okay? And it also teaches you tithing, which is also very important. Now, on top of that, what are your other needs? And I'm not talking about, hey, Tommy, I have this need to buy me some sneakers. No, I'm talking about needs. These are massive, massive goals here. So the first thing is education. So this is basically what I call skill training, and it is an investment. And let me break down why this is going to be an investment, because your education, if you pick, for example, the right career or the right job, the right skill, whether it's, for example, a trade job, that means, for example, plumber, electrician, or whether it's being, for example, an accountant or a lawyer, whatever you want, what you basically want to do that's cheap and basically makes sense, the answer is, well, when you do those things, if you invest $10,000, $20,000 into getting a degree, and it turns into making you $40,000 to $8,000 a year in a job, the answer is that is a great investment. It makes you a positive return. So setting money aside for that skill is going to be super important. Now, here is one other rule here. You got to do each of these one by one. So it's not like I'm going to grab the money I make and spread it around. No, you do one by one. So the goal is figure out exactly how much money you need to save for college, for example. Set that goal amount, and once you hit it, you move on to the next one. And the next one is going to be, for example, your first car. Now, your first car, this is super important. The average person, they have to get a loan on their first car, or they have to get it gifted or something like that, but usually they get a loan. They go into debt for it. So if you're able to set money aside to save up for a $1,000 to $5,000 first car, that's going to give you a massive advantage. Now, there is one thing I want to say. Most likely you have an idea about your first car. And my first car idea was basically I wanted this red Mercedes C-Class, and it was so sexy. I didn't buy it because it was a terrible investment. It's not an investment. It's going to lose value every year. The value is going to go down. And on top of that, if anything breaks on that car, it's super expensive. So first car recommendations would probably be, for example, anything Toyota related, Honda related, Mazda related. Just look them up, okay? Look for something reliable. It doesn't have to be sexy. Again, it's just your first car to take you to work or to school or to both, okay? That's the idea. Later on, once you have some money and you have some stability, you can buy that sexy car like the Lexus. Right now, I drive a Toyota Prius 2014. It's not sexy. But later this year, once I'm done, for example, with my house remodel, which I just bought a house, by the way, I'm going to be able to say, hey, I want to buy this Lexus, which I really like, and it looks very sexy, and it's a nice car. But now I can buy it in cash because I have the money to buy it, and I don't have to get a crazy loan. Now, that's the second thing, right? But the third thing is going to be, for example, your first apartment, which is usually going to be a security deposit and also first month's rents usually, and sometimes even first month's rents and last month's rent. So obviously you need some cash for these things. Now, think about this. By what age do I want to move out of my parents' house, right? So you think about that, you set that deadline also, and then you say, well, how much money am I going to need? A common rule is this. Don't spend more than 33% of your monthly income on housing, on your rent, your first apartment. Again, it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be super big. It has to be something comfortable while you basically stay there and save up money and stack up cash to do later what you want to do, which is usually buy a home that you can actually afford. So again, don't worry about how things look. Worry about what's actually going on. And by the way, by this point, you might notice, Tommy, college, car, apartment. I'm not going to be able to do all this stuff by being a teenager usually. The answer is you can. It's very possible. I'll do the math like in a second, no, but it's going to be very hard. And if you only manage to do college, that's fine. While you're in college, work, save for the first car, work, save for the first apartment. And yes, it is okay to work while you study. Don't make that stupid mistake to just go to college and just basically study. It's stupid. Go to college, have a job, and potentially an internship. That way, when you graduate with a bunch of experience, okay? It's a lot of work, but the work is worth it for what you actually get out of it. Because most people, they graduate with a bunch of debts. That's $20,000 to $50,000, which is basically just like crippling. They also have, for example, a bunch of debt on the car. And they also get crazy expensive apartments they basically cannot afford. And that's not what you want to do. And lastly, the fourth thing you want to save up money for is going to be your first investments. Usually, it's going to be a Roth IRA with some ETFs and index funds. You don't have to understand everything I'm saying right now. Just understand these are very safe investments for the future. But the reason investing is not number one and it's actually number four, the last one, is because it's not a priority, not at least in the beginning, because usually the best return on your money is going to come by investing in yourself and setting yourself up first. Because if you spend $10,000 in investment, you won't get it for the next 10, 20, 30 years, like a reasonable amount. But if you spend $10,000 on yourself on a degree or a license or something like that, you can make a higher income like that in 2 to 4 years. And that is a better return overall. So that's the idea. These are the four main goals that you basically want to save up for. These are massive. These are big. It's going to take a minute to actually get there. You have college, first car, first apartment, and then investment, usually into a Roth. Now, here's the math, guys, okay? The math is very simple. And before you say, Tommy, this is impossible, I'm not going to be able to do it, I have links down below to a video I made about different jobs you can basically do as a teenager to actually make a good amount of money. Now, let's just say, as a reasonable amount of money, let's say you manage to make $500 a week. You might say, Tommy, this is a crazy amount of money. It's a lot of money. The answer is, it's not that much money, because if you divide this by 7, you got to make $71 a day. If you divide it, let's say you work on an average of 4 hours, right? You got to just figure out a way to make 17. It's not really this much, honestly, because in reality, here's the real math. I want to do everything right here. If you can work for 15 bucks an hour, including tips and everything right inside of it, because your base pay might be 8 bucks an hour, but with tips and extra side hustles, you can potentially make at least 15 bucks an hour, okay? So if you have this and you work, for example, 4 times 5 is 20 hours during the week. So boom, you have $300. And on top of that, during the weekends, you do 8 hours times 2. That's going to be 16 times 15. That's another, for example, like 240. So overall, let's just say round down to basically 500 bucks a month, right? 500 bucks a week. So that's, for example, per month, that's going to be $2,000. Per year, that's going to be around $24,000. This right here is not a lot of money. It isn't, right? For the average person. But when you don't have that many expenses, this right here is a lot of money. This is basically, you can do whatever you want with this money. It's a lot of money. So overall, if you have this much money, and let's say as a teenager, you're able to work for the next 4 years or whatever, right? So times 4, well, you're gonna have around $96,000. So from 14 to 18, or from 13 to 17, you have $96,000. That is a lot of money. Now overall, taxes are gonna take around 20%, okay? Your wants are gonna take around 20% potentially, okay? Even probably less, okay? But let's say overall, you get to keep around 60% of this money. That means you keep around $57,000, nearly $60,000. Some of you guys are gonna be able to save a lot more money. But let's say your degree is $40,000. By the way, when you go to college, I'm gonna give you some resources right now to actually spend a lot less money. But the answer is, you still have money left. If you want to buy a car, $5,000. Okay, great. Your first apartment, let's say $3,000. Okay. Investments, you get to basically max it out the first year. All the money is basically there to do exactly what you need to basically get done. And this way, you start off life with a lot more of a better foundation. And that is awesome. Like, trust me when I say, this right here is not normal. It's not easy. And if you do it, you will be a lot better off. But it's because you're basically not normal. When I was this age, I basically just spent all the money on trash. And that's what the average people basically do. Now, I want to give you guys some resources here. I want to give you 5 books to basically read if you actually want to take this very seriously, because you got to have the knowledge and information. And right now, this right here is a part of the knowledge, but it's just the first step, okay? Because you're going to need a lot more. Now, the first book is going to be this one called Debt-Free Degree by Anthony O'Neill. This book was actually written for parents because parents usually pay for stuff, but if you're going to pay for it, then you got to read this right here. It shows you exactly how to graduate with no debt. And it's basically go to community college, apply for a lot of scholarships, have a job, pay for it that way. And remember, okay, usually when you go to college, they're going to have financial aid and different ways to actually pay for it. So it's not really like $40,000 like at all, potentially, if you do it the smart way. So community college, 2 years, that's very cheap. And then you go to the normal college to actually get the other 2 years for your bachelor's degree, and then boom, you graduate. Or if you don't go to college, you just get a trade job. That's even a lot simpler and also a lot better, and you also earn a good amount of money too. Now, the second book is going to be called right here, Atomic Habits by James Clear. You probably ask me, Tommy, why are you giving me a book about this stuff right here? The answer is because building good habits is going to be super important. And you're going to need very good habits to do what you want to do, which is basically do something that the average kid is never going to be able to do. This is hard stuff, okay? Now, the third one is going to be called I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. I don't have a solid copy of this one because I read it on Audible, so I listened to it overall. So good book, though. I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. It teaches you about credit cards, teaches you about, for example, also investments. But I would ignore everything aside from the investment information because that is very solid, but I wouldn't get into credit card debt and then all this vacation stuff. Just don't do that stuff at all. You don't need it. Now, the fourth book is going to be called Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. This guy is very extreme, like overall. He's all no debt, no nothing, but he's very good at what he does overall, and you will get a lot out of it. And when you read these books, you might say, Tommy, these books don't relate to me in a way because you're basically a kid, you probably don't have that much debt or whatever, but overall, they will relate to you based on the averages once you do become an adult. And by knowing this stuff right now, you will be miles ahead, not teenagers, but adults overall. And that is an amazing thing. And the last book is going to be called Learn to Earn by Peter Lynch. Now, don't forget, books are not free, but you can get them for free, for example, on YouTube, the Audible version. But if you can't afford to spend, for example, 10, 15 bucks from your first check, the answer is spend it on a book. Because the book is an investment. It keeps giving you more and more and more money because the knowledge that you actually get from it is amazing. Like God and books and knowledge, all this stuff goes all together. Super, 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 super important. But guys, overall, that is it for this video. So overall, just don't forget, having an income, having a plan, and having goals, that is what's going to get you to success, okay? And I'm so excited for you guys, okay? Because if I knew this stuff, well, not just know, if I knew this stuff and I was willing to do it when I was a teenager, I would have been in a whole different level right now. Even for example, if I managed to make 500 bucks, okay, like for example, for the like $24,000, well, $26,000, because actually like, well, this is actually the real math, okay, it's actually $26,000 a year. You make 500 bucks a week. But even if you do like summer jobs, you actually make even more money. But if I manage to just do this, for example, not even 4 years, just like 2 years, right, and keep just for example 80% of it, well, let's say 60% of it, right, I would have had $31,000. That would have been enough to pay my student loans, which is basically like $20,000 or 21,000 like overall. That would have been enough to get my first car, so I wouldn't have to take the bus every single day. And that would have been enough also to get my first apartment, which I paid like $2,000 for, by the way, like overall. And that would have been enough to start off my investments. Like, that's it. You don't have to be like, oh, 4 years deep. 2 years is enough. Like, it's crazy. And if I would have been smart enough not to go to private school and all this other dumb stuff I did, I would have been so much better off. Like, having this stuff right here would have been a lot more different. But then I wouldn't be the person I am today to teach you all this stuff today. So it all works out in the end. My mistakes are going to help you. So that's worth it to me in a way. Thanks for watching. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified. Comment down below any questions. And comment down below. When you comment down below, comment teen. That way I know that it's actually a real person and you actually made it all the way to this point in the video. So comment down below teen along with your comment, or just teen, so I know you made it all the way to this part of the video. And also, if you want to DM me on Instagram, DM me at TommyBryson. On top here also is another video all about making money as a teenager and different jobs. And over here is my face. Click and subscribe. Thanks for watching. As always, long-term team officially out. Don't forget, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a race. Peace.